Thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate it. Want to start off by just talking about your visit to Iowa. You know, I know a lot of you guys have been talking about the working families tax cuts. Tell me about why you think it's important to just spread this message to Iowans at this time of the year.
Well, the working families tax cut has been so beneficial. And, you know, when you're in Iowa, we had a great event this morning. You talk to business owners, and they're seeing the benefits in their pockets. I mean, we really wanted to focus it on working families. And, you know, you think about no tax on overtime. Over 30 million Americans have already benefited from that. And the average worker is getting about $4,000 more back in their pocket. You think about the tax benefit we gave to senior citizens. You know, President Trump talking about no tax on Social Security. 35 million Americans have taken advantage of that, and that's real money in their pockets. And Zach has been one of these champions who just fights, not just for the people of Iowa, but he fights for hardworking families all around the country. And the results are clear. I mean, he's passed 27 bills that have been signed into law. And that's a rare feat by any legislator, let alone somebody who's only been here a few years. You know, he's been a great member of our team. He was the leader to get year-round E15 in the Farm Bill, and that bill's over in the Senate. We sure want to see that bill get to President Trump's desk. But again, that's the kind of leadership that Zach Nunn has provided, and it's benefiting the people of Iowa.
Secretary, what have you been hearing from Iowans, and what's so important about this message to get out to Iowans?
Well, it's great for me to be out here because we passed the working families tax cut 13 months ago on July 4th, which thanks to these guys, nobody thought could be done.
That's right.
Remember, 2017, the tax bill didn't get done until just before Christmas. So we've had 13 months, and it's great for me to be able to see we created great policy, and we had a barbell. On one side, the corporate deductions, all the incentives for American corporations to build here. We're having a manufacturing renaissance. You can fully expense a new factory structure, the equipment in it, and ag structures. I'm sure that's big here in Iowa. And then on the other side, as Leader Scalise said, you can have the President's 4 signature policies: no tax and tips, no tax and overtime, Social Security, and deduction of interest for American-made cars. I also oversee the IRS. 44% of Americans filed one of those. One of those. So on one side, the bill's powerful. It's creating jobs. It's creating construction, more manufacturing. On the other side, it's the American way. You want to work more, you keep more.
That's right.
Congressman Nunn, what does it mean to have them here in Iowa? This is awesome.
Well, I think they're showcasing really some great Iowa ideas that have been able to be passed into legislation and now are being implemented by Treasury. Look, the first foremost of this family tax cut is making sure we're taking care of families. We're talking about $2,500 going to every kiddo in the state and their families with it. We were able to lead the charge for foster care, $5,000 tax credit for foster to adopt. That helps not only our 2 girls, it helps people across the state of Iowa. Equally, we've made a real investment in both ag and advanced manufacturing, 2 things Iowa does really well. I'm so grateful to have a Treasury Secretary that not only knows finance, but he knows ag as well. That means we went from having a $50 billion deficit for foreign trade, that means selling corn, soybeans, hogs, to now being able to not only break even, but open up new markets. We just went to Taiwan, where we took them from a 95% tariff down to 0, and they're going to buy Iowa corn, they're going to buy Iowa soybean, they're going to help grow our economy here, but also produce real energy. So in Iowa, it's about food, and it's also about fuel. We're leading the charge, as the leader highlighted here, with year-round nationwide E15 to drive down fuel costs by 50%. But the Secretary has also led on rulemaking for 45Z, so we can have agro diesel be a success route of 20 additional cents lower in fuel prices. That means the cost of what we're buying at the grocery store, eating at Casey's, being able to fill up a minivan, all gets more affordable going forward. This is what a team effort looks like, and real results being delivered back to Iowans.
And in the past year, since the bill's passed, as the congressman said, we've been doing rulemaking at Treasury, and I think the congressman must have us on speed dial. we almost call it a Zach attack. He was one of the leading proponents, the 445Z, making sure everything got done for state here.
And you guys just listed off a handful of different things that have been, done in DC. Obviously we've seen billions invested in farmers across the country over the past year or so, but there are still farmers out there that are saying they're feeling the pinch, especially with the war in Iran, with fertilizer and gas prices. How are these efforts ensuring to Iowans and farmers that, there is a light at the end of the tunnel? What would you say to them who are still struggling right now?
Well, one thing I would say is there's a really good farm bill that is sitting over in the Senate that we want to see moved to the president's desk. Zach Nunn was incredibly instrumental in putting that bill together. And like I said, the year-end E15 initiative that's in that bill was there because of Zach fighting to get that in. But there's a lot of other provisions that give stability for farmers in Iowa, farmers all around the country that put food on the tables of Americans and allow us to export that food as the Secretary and Zach have talked about. And so, getting that bill signed into law, it's close. It's over in the Senate. We got it out of the House because of the leadership of Zach Nunn.
What would you guys say to farmers still feeling the pinch?
Yeah, I would say the underlying fundamentals are strong. That I lead the negotiations with the Chinese. We have for soybeans 25 million tons being bought this year. We've got 12.5 million catch up next year, and there's certainty. We got 25 million for the next 4 years, and then another 17 billion of other crops, whether it's corn, rice, sorghum. So the underlying is strong, and we're going to get to the other side of this Iran conflict, we've got this short-term spike that it's gone on longer than anyone would have liked in energy. We peaked in the middle of May, that we are down from there, and diesel prices will come down. I'm leading the G20 finance ministers in Asheville, North Carolina at the end of this week, and we are going to call for the Iranians to let fertilizer out of the Gulf because it is a global food problem. Here in the U.S., it is hurting the earnings and the livelihoods of our farmers, but in many of the poorer countries around the world, it's the life and death. So we are going to try to get that solved by October.
I want to really give credit to the Secretary here, not only being a leader and saying, hey, we're going to make fertilizer a humanitarian cause. One of the reasons that we want to be able to get out, not only to take care of folks around the world, let's talk about input costs here in the United States. I'm thrilled that the House was able to move forward and the President signed into law a bill that moved forward just about 80% of the Farm Bill. Look, we're talking about $50 billion that's already been committed and the legislation already going forward. We're also ending things like the death tax, something we've done here in Iowa, but helps a generational farmer pass that on. We've also installed our young and beginning farmers tax credit because while land prices are at an all-time high, that's great if you've got the farm. But if you want to be able to transition that on or get into farming, we want to be able to have a made in American manufacturing base. That means we've got to make sure we've got a buyer who can buy here in America too. Not only do we want to continue our export opportunities, we want to continue to foster what we're doing right here in the state. This has been a good policy set that we started last year, and you can see very clearly the Secretary's got a plan to carry us on through the next 3 years.
And he talked about manufacturing. I want to get into a question about that. There's a lot of people that you guys have talked about the working families tax cuts supporting manufacturing and agriculture across the country. But here in Iowa over the past year, we've had over 4,000 manufacturing jobs cut. Why do you think that happened? And what would you say to people who did have their job cut? And how do you ensure that this is still going to benefit the manufacturers?
Well, I'll take that because we think about it at Treasury, every hour, every day, every week. And what happened was 2025, Iowa lost 8,000 manufacturing jobs, and manufacturing happens with a lead. So long lead time, like for instance, what we're seeing, my home state, my hometown, Charleston, South Carolina, Bowen's expanding. They're going to have 1,000 new jobs. But that takes 2 or 3 years to expand the plant 50%. But in the meantime, you have construction jobs. So what we are seeing nationwide, because of the tax bill and all the work that these gentlemen did, we are seeing a manufacturing renaissance, which begins with a construction renaissance.
That's right. So
I think that everyone who lost their jobs, Iowa has a 3.2% unemployment rate. It is a gold standard for the country, and I am confident that those folks, that there will be plenty of high-paying precision manufacturing jobs for them in the months and years to come.
And Dana, I'm going to highlight two really good success stories the Secretary just noted here. Look, we've got a group, we just went out and met with AutoJet. They've had their best year on record. They've used 100% deduction financing so that they can buy million-dollar equipment. They're hiring people back, but they're also making a profit. Being made in America means making a prioritization not only for what we manufacture, but the workforce that we grow. It's one of the reasons we put almost $5 million into skilled trades at our community colleges to help that next generation of workforce have the technical skills to do it. And we've seen the real success here happen at an Iowa-based company called XGuard. They build cattle catchers on the front of trucks. The reality is China stole that technology, replicated it back home, and dumped in the United States with Chinese-made steel, almost putting an American business out of work. Look, 5 years ago, these guys were not being defended. For the last 18 months, this administration, this Congress has fought to make sure that foreign entities don't get to dump on the United States. Not only have we helped protect XGuard here in Iowa, they're now growing and being able to ship all over the world based on the technology and the hard work of Iowa manufacturers. So you're absolutely right. Construction, job quality equals great economic growth.
Let's talk about Trump accounts, a big effort that you guys have had underway. You know, how is that beneficial for Iowans specifically? And for maybe those who would push back and say, you know, I don't have the funds to invest right now. What would you tell them to really put this at the front of their minds?
Well, couple of things. You're exactly right. 38% of American households have no exposure to the equity markets, either through direct stock holdings or through 401ks. And Trump accounts, we want to make everyone in America an owner. I think everyone should have a piece of the action. You know, in our great capital markets, the innovation, the economic power, the manufacturing and business leaders that we have. So during President Trump's term, any child born during then, Treasury will seed the account with $1,000. Any child under age 18 is eligible for a Trump account. I would tell all parents to go to trumpaccounts.gov, get them open, because we are also seeing some great philanthropists like Michael and Susan Dell they've contributed $6.25 billion, and that is for the families who don't have the money to put in the account. So that'll be about, they are giving it to the bottom 80% of zip codes in terms of wage earners, so we're excluding the top 20. They don't need the help, and it'll be about $250 per account. Many states are doing it, many businesses are doing it as a new fringe benefit. So, and you know, we're seeing lots of philanthropists and foundations do it. We've seen, oil pioneer Harold Hamm has adopted the state of Oklahoma. He's going to be doing that in Oklahoma. Ray Dalio is doing it in Connecticut, and I think we're going to see it everywhere.
And you think about it, over 7 million Americans have already taken advantage of this new benefit for their kids. This is a benefit for children born in America. And, you know, all of a sudden, without anything, and you talk about, well, do people have to put anything up? What if they don't have anything? They don't have to put anything up because the government starts it off. The government seeds that account, and then it grows. It grows with the stock market. You know, when your child turns 5 and 10 years old, they can actually start tracking the market to see how their account is doing. And then lo and behold, by the time they turn 18, they might have $100,000 in an account that they didn't even have to put a dime into. Obviously, as Secretary Bessent talked about, you've got a lot of other people out there, capitalists, that are putting money in for kids as well to add to it. But this is just something we did. And by the way, we did it by doing things like eliminating fraud in government. You know, part of what was in the Working Families tax cut is rooting out fraud, the theft of American taxpayer dollars that, you know, your family in Iowa, you're watching your money being stolen by fraudsters in Minneapolis when you saw those leering centers and all the stuff that infuriated people. Well, we exposed that by putting that fraud prevention in place, and we took the money and gave it back to working families in Iowa and their kids now. Their kids can get these Trump accounts, and all of a sudden they're benefiting from us eliminating fraud in other states.
And to just wrap up the interview real quick, you guys are obviously high-ranking GOP members out of D.C. here in Iowa. What do you want Iowans to know ahead of the midterm elections? Because obviously Congressman Nunn is in a very tight race. So what's your message to Iowans going into November?
Well, we need people like Zach Nunn. He's a great member of our team, but he's been fighting for the people of Iowa and delivering, most importantly, for the people of Iowa. And if we're going to keep working with the president to make life more affordable for families in this country, we need more leaders like Zach Nunn. So we surely want him back. We need him back on this team. And we got a lot more work to do to keep delivering for the people of Iowa and America.
And I would say the Democrats will do it again. They opened the border, and we don't know how many came in, whether it was 10, 15, 20 million illegal workers who pressured the lowest wage earners. They spent and blew out the budget deficit, which created the worst inflation in 50 years since I was a teenager in the 70s. So they will do it again, and these Republican policies, like the working families tax cuts, are kicking in, and we are in the liftoff mode.
Anything you want to add?
Dana, I would just say, hey, it's great to have wingmen like this. Look, as a military guy, I think we want to have a battle plan for how we're making life better. We also need to look at the record of accomplishment that we've had working as a team. Whether you're a Republican, an independent, a Democrat, the reality is we're all Iowans, we're all Americans. Being able to pass the largest tax cut in American history doesn't just happen. This is a team effort. And what I don't want to see is a rollback of a policy that increases the largest tax increase if we swap this out. Equally important, we want to take all ideas, and that's what the Secretary was here today, to be able to hear from real leaders in the field. Let's incorporate that. Let's make the Iowa gold standard America's gold standard.
I love it. Anybody we're going to see back in Iowa for a presidential run in 2028? We got the Iowa caucuses.
I didn't come for the fair, I came for this.
Yeah. There you go.
Well said, Mr. Secretary.
Good
Thank
to
you
see
very
you.
much, sir. Thanks, boss.
Always good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks, Leader.
Thank you guys. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thank you.